All right, guys. Yeah, somebody asked about moving to Spain. Was it for the kids? Well, the answer to that is yes, simply yes. The education system here is better than the Philippines. And you will get people argue, well, if you pay for the education, it's better. We paid for our education, but in all honesty, the state system here is better than a lot of the schooling in the Philippines, even if you pay for it. There is international schooling. There is some people I know that actually do homeschooling to a UK standard, but I also don't think the UK standard is high enough either. So for me, I do think the Spanish system's good. This is the kids' school. I'm actually sat outside right now because April's sorting out the fact that we're moving house and now I have to change the bus route because the kids get picked up from where we live, by school bus. But the thing here is, I do find the kids get way too much homework. I've got to admit that. They do get excess here. I do think this area has got a really bad mathematical system. So, at the end of the day, not everything's great. But the thing is, here, it's much easier for me to make money financially, which means that it's much easier for example, if you want private tuition, readily available, what do you want? I mean, there's people here that can teach your kids Russian, Croatian, multiple dialects for Spain, because obviously in Valencia, they want you to speak Valencian. There's Spanish, and then there's other languages in different regions as well. And there's a funny setup in the sense that there's a lot of localized nationalism, in the sense like Catalonia wanting its Catalan wanting its independence. That's what I call localized nationalism, in the sense that people there, and I wouldn't say all people, it's probably about 50-50, want independence there, and they want the people to speak their own languages and stuff. If you want to get a job in a lot of these government buildings, you will have to have the local dialect, which is above the Spanish language. You have to speak the languages that is regional. So those issues exist, but at the same time, they teach the languages anyway. My son already speaks, I think he speaks 2 Spanish dialects. But generally, the system's good. You've also got the other side of this thing up in the sky, which is sunshine. But it's not obscured with dust from the road. It's not obscured with people burning rubbish. It's not obscured with cars that are polluting in the same way as you get in the Philippines, where you get the belches or smoke. It's a clean environment. We sit between 2 salt lakes, which means that a lot of people retire here because the air quality is very, very good. We have one of the best hospitals in the world as well. That's another thing that Torrevieja has. Now, Torrevieja is a town. I don't really rate it. I don't like Torrevieja. I like La Mata, which is sort of the north end. But I do find the construction of Torrevieja itself too enclosed, which then makes it feel a little unfriendly. I mean, I've got to admit, it's not too bad, but it's just like, I don't like it. But for the education side, the school's good. University access is good. A lot of the people we know here are well educated to a higher standard than the UK. Somebody brought up that as well, relating to is the education in the Philippines higher than the UK? I would say they're studying different things. I find this obsession of being well-rounded has crept into Western society. The teachers here bring that up, but it's obscured. At the end of the day, I have no problem with LGBTs or anything, whatever anybody wants to do. But in Birmingham area, for example, they've actually pushed it into the curriculum. The kids are struggling with the information they've got already, and we're pushing politics into the education system. It's not about awareness, it's politics. I don't care what anybody says. A kid at primary school doesn't really need to be involved in LGBT issues. They've got enough going on about Transformers v what's them other things, whatever. But the point is, they're not allowed to be kids, and that's one of the things. It's becoming too obsessed with things that aren't relevant. In the Philippines, you can get a good education system, but it's often strongly supported by the parents that are putting a lot of time and effort in as well to maintain a high grade. Here in Spain, we do spend a lot of time with the kids. I do mathematics, April does languages, lingua, and some other stuff. But the kids are getting a good education here. A lot of people have mentioned that people under 25 struggle to get a job. A lot of them slack off. It's in the nature. I don't care what anybody says. It's in the nature. It frustrates me, to be honest. This is why the education minister here was blaming the parents. It wasn't saying the education system's failing. It says the parents are failing the education system. In that sense, I have to agree. She was right. And I mean, that's the one thing I will say is that it doesn't matter where your kids are, you've got to put time in yourself. There's a lot of stuff that is not taught in school. When I was 6 years old, I was getting into computer studies. I was programming an Apple IIe when I was 6 years old. I was like it was in BASIC, because we didn't have any software like for word processors and stuff. So when you had to print something, you actually had to write it in code, in BASIC, because it wasn't capable. There was no software at the time that could actually print for you. You had to do it manually. So there's a lot of it is putting your effort in as well. But the other side, I look at that. If you look at a Filipino engineer, a Spanish engineer, which one's going to get the highest salary? When a engineer wants to go to the UK, which one's going to be easiest to access the UK? Because at the end of the day, Filipino passports don't get you anywhere. It's a start of a process of visas for this, visa for that. Spain, Latin America is opened up for the kids. The whole of Europe is open to the kids. Even if the UK decides to do whatever it's doing, and I don't really want to get into that today because it is a complete farce. But ultimately, they get a good education here. They're multilingual. The facilities are here. They're doing a lot of sports, like today, because it's the school holidays. Although we're at the school here, the kids aren't actually here. They're at the sports facilities. My son's doing mixed martial arts today and swimming. My daughter's also doing swimming. I think she's doing mixed martial arts as well, because she's starting to do kicking things around the house and things. So I think she must be doing it somewhere. But even with that, there's a lot of stuff on your doorstep. We've got horse riding, quad biking, cycling, trekking, hiking. Everything's here because we're in an environment which encourages kids to do a lot of outdoor activities. In the UK, everything's charging you, and that's another big thing. The Philippines doesn't have a lot of these facilities. It just simply doesn't have them. I mean, you may have your basketball court at the end of the street, but the football pitch, you'd have to probably go at the international schools. Rugby, international schools. Swimming, maybe able to go to a resort, but at the same time, it's not the same as having a swimming coach and everything else here. It's just a completely different environment, and there's a lot of focus on sports here in education. Torrevieja itself pushes itself as being a sports town, well, a sports city, and it's got a horrendous amount of facilities. If you look at Torrevieja from Google Maps, you'll see over the top, you'll see the amount of sports facilities here. There's a ridiculous amount for the size of the population here. But at the same time, they also have sponsorship. If you excel at school here, in a sport, or get on like a national, regional, whatever team, it helps for you going to the next school up or whatever, or deciding you want to move. Every school wants that because the school get extra funding for you being there. This is the other thing. The schools want more students. The schools want students to excel because they get more investment from the state. So there's a big push on it here. And what I say in the Philippines side is a lot of it is you give me money. And although the education system's okay and it can be cost effective, I mean, I've got to admit, when the kids were younger, having one-to-one tuition and stuff was pretty cheap compared to what I'd pay here. But even then, it's still not expensive here, in comparison to, say, the UK. The red tape hasn't taken everything over here. Although there are some issues, for example, they will walk from here to the swimming pool because they can't use the bus because the bus can't get the insurance for the children. Ultimately, it's a simple thing. The UK would have a lot more legislation involved that makes life complex for doing the most simplest of tasks. That puts a lot of teachers off even bothering because the amount of paperwork involved just for submitting, like going to the museum for the day. Here, the kids have been to several castles, they've been to museums, they've been all over the place. And there's always something going on. And the teachers are very, very focused. Now, I've got to admit, I can't really bash teachers too much in the UK because the teachers I had at high school, I've got to admit, they didn't seem that bothered about education. And I can understand that at high school level, where you just were looking for your pension when you joined as a young student, become a teacher, and your students have drained the life out of you over the years. I can understand that. But the kids here with the teachers are very passionate about what they're doing. They're very hands-on. They're very keen for parents to get involved and all that sort of stuff. So yes, I love it here. You know, the education system's fantastic for the kids. And yes, it is why we moved to Europe. And yes, it's because of the access to good universities and everything else. And yes, it's because of European passports, so that the kids have a better future as well. They could do well in the Philippines without a doubt, but why? Even average in Europe is better than a lot of people do doing well in the Philippines. Just the basic facilities on your doorstep here is better than most people want. A lot of people move here with minimal income because the standard of living is a lot higher. The fact is, you can have a battered old car here and not care less about it because there is no keeping up with the Joneses. Nobody cares less. The whole point is you're simply just enjoying where you are. The sunshine, the beaches, the environment you're in, the good food. And above that, flashy cars, designer clothes, don't really matter. It's a great environment to be in. Thanks for watching.